All right, and wait a few seconds. All right. All right, everybody. Hey, it is Education with Ed. Hey, Ed's here. I had a little bit of a late start myself, but hey, everything worked out all right. Now, it is Sunday, January 6th, 2019. Remember, we're no longer in 2018, so stop autographing your checks and stuff 2018, guys. Come on. Ed, why don't you let everybody know you're live and you're here.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I'd like to get into that. We want to thank everybody for joining us for further education. This has been a blessing for us to get this stuff out. It's been a blessing for our other associates that keep sending us information so we can put this stuff out so we can get it out to you. We do know that there's been an increase of people hitting the Facebook pages and the website. People are standing up. They're getting more and more of what their rights are compared to privileges. And that's the one thing, too, with the immigrants that are comprehending the verses of lawful and legal, because we know that the corporation president, Donald Trump, came out and said that the 14th Amendment was never ratified. They're trying to pass the 28th Amendment, but it can't be ratified. These things cannot be ratified. They can only be administrative because after 1867, we're in a corporation. Corporations can't ratify anything. The House and Senate has to do it, and it has to be in a republic form of government. It cannot be in a democracy corporation system. And this is the one thing that people have got to stop arguing, start learning what the law is. Because I've been dealing with many people on Facebook while I've been sitting in the hospital, and because I've been in the hospital off and on for the last 2.5 months because of my heart condition, and so it's been interesting, dealing with severe heart issues and pressures and stuff that I mean, sometimes you wish things on your enemy, but this is one thing that what I've gone through and basically like suffocating almost to death and a few other things. I wouldn't wish that on somebody. It's been a rough enough deal for myself going through it. So it is a learning experience for myself and those around me. And this is the one thing that we've got to start paying attention. This is like with the Constitution. You have rights and privileges if you're a citizen, and that even includes if you're a bloodline Native American and you're still claiming to be a citizen. You have privileges. You have no rights unless you file for it. And it's interesting because I get people go all the time says, "Well, I don't need to file. I don't have to file," and they're supposed to automatically do this for me. And it's like, folks, I'm trying to get people to comprehend the reason why we've got an Immigration Act that goes back to 1787. And that's the one thing people go, it doesn't go back that far. Yes, it does. Read your Constitution. Read what our forefathers outlined and put in place to protect you, us. Not only that was put in to protect immigration. So when they come here and they become lawful bloodline natives after 5 generations, now they have rights. So in that term, they're supposed to, make sure that their assets get passed down, their property and that stuff. And then when it becomes lawful, now they have security. And that's what it's all about. You cannot walk into somebody's home, and that's basically what a lot of people do in this country, is that they think they can walk in and our borders are open and they can just walk into our country. Well, that's like me walking in your home and telling you how to live. I mean, you're going to probably, get me, shoot me or tell me to get the heck out of your house or something to that effect. And so this is the one thing that we've got to start looking at these options that with the rights that are there. And so when we start enforcing our rights and start enforcing the border structure, because all these people are whining, and trust me, I've been dealing even with other associates of mine whining about the border issue. Oh, and then I got people that says, oh, come up with it, get in time. Things have changed since the structure of our Constitution, and we need to revamp our Constitution, and we need to revamp our border structure so we can open the border for anybody. Well, folks, you've got to come to the reality and come to some real thinking, some reality here. where's the food coming from? How are people going to eat? How are people going to survive? See, that's the one thing the average man and woman has no intelligence to look at this fact, how to survive, because they're so adapted to walk into a grocery store and get what they want. Now, if the grocery stores are not there, how are you going to be able to feed yourself if you don't know how to hunt, fish, and know the food resources on public land? And that's the other thing, too. We've got to work, and if people got information on that, and I'm looking for that, because I want to put a ballot title, I want to put an initiative together, even though I hate that because it's a pleading instrument, but I want to set it up so that way we can set it up so public soil cannot be sold. Because these men and women have been selling public land, and by federal law, they cannot sell public land. But see, they think they can because under the word called democracy, the devil's Bible word. And so, I know I'm hard on religion, and people know that. But people have a right to their religious beliefs, so we have to protect that. But the other point is, if we don't protect our food resources in our own bloodline, that ties us back to the Civil War or going back to even the Revolutionary War, our bloodline, we have no future, and that's where people don't get it. I've argued with many people on the internet going, well, just because I'm not native. My family came, and I said, well, okay, well, what about your mom and dad? How does that affect us? How do you know with your bloodline that if your grandmother or your great-grandmother, let's say if they were here in the 1880s, how do you know that? And then they go, well, my father was or my great-grandfather was. And I said, oh, okay. But they're going, well, I can't count that. And I said, no, that's the point. That's why they call you half-breeds or quarter-breeds. Okay, or eighth, and everybody goes eighth, Indian, and all that. Well, see, it's native. See, Indians are been around. So has been white man. So has been, and I'll say colored man. Yellow man, whatever color you want to talk about the fantasy. But you don't use the word African American, Chinese American. Either you're American or not. When you put a title in front of it, like Chinese American, you're claiming you're not an American. You're claiming you're a foreigner from a foreign corporation, so you have no rights, and that's exactly what you're doing to yourself. And this is the one thing that people have got to start coming to the real conclusions how the system works, because people are getting it. People have been getting what I've been talking about. I watch other agencies that are really getting this stuff that, now are starting to get it and passing the word around. Because it comes down to the Constitution gives us rights. The treaties with the natives give us rights. Read the Lehman Treaty. The Paris Treaty. You read that. That's the one thing that people go through this when they don't get some of these treaties what they mean, how they were set up. It's like people are going off on the internet because, now they're talking about taxes. And this is the other thing that gets to me. Everybody wants to talk about taxes. Where's the law says you have to pay it? The only ones by law, and I've proven this in the instruments and filed it with the House and Senate and filed it with the Supreme Court, the only ones who are obligated to pay taxes are elected and public servants, registered church members, registered voters, because as a registered voter, you're saying you're going to pay the senators and congressmen's debt that they're putting, called a bill. And remember, when they pass House and Senate bills, that's a debt bill. So if you're elected a voter, you're voting and saying that I agree with these terms. So that's the one thing. And we'll get a template up there, and your counties have it, but we'll get one up there eventually here shortly to get you out of voting if you want to do that. It's like everybody keeps going, well, Social Security is a benefit. Social Security did not become a benefit until recent years. It's an obligation, and it's a contract for lawful bloodline native. And if you get the information that I put on Social Security with the laws, Social Security, even in 1911 and 1927, was clearly through the Supreme Court, all right, lawfully, legally. Okay, so it's a constitution right, not privilege, so long as you're our native bloodline. That's where all these men and women, go off and say, well, these people pay taxes because they're immigrants, and so they don't get no money back, so they lose their income that they put in. Well, yes, they do, because that's part of what they have to pay to be in this country before they become lawful. And so when you read the structure of our country, how we've done this, it's like the 17th Amendment. The 17th Amendment supposedly gives you the right to vote. But see, when you get the 17th Amendment, the right to vote, that's when the called the Republican Democracy Corporation was formed. So prior to that, there was no such thing as voting in this country. And so that's the point that people got to come with reality of the truth. Prior to the Civil War, people didn't vote. Prior to the Civil War, you didn't have school debts or anything, because with local schools back then, people grew the food. People raised the food and brought the food to the schools. If somebody butchered a deer or an elk or cattle or something like that, they always supplied a few days of food to the schools at that time. People who had big gardens supplied the food to the schools. And I put a bill in the state of Oregon trying to do that before, and Terry Thompson, County Commissioner of Lincoln County, was the one who put in the bill and got a year funding on it when I was trying to set this up so it was set up for life. Because we have solutions to raise our food resources, but see, everybody goes, well, if it's not a tax write-off, there's no money to be made. Now, we get this, it takes money to make money, but remember, we're dealing with de facto dollars. Now, you people have to realize that Donald Trump is talking just like John F. Kennedy did, going on the gold standard. And so I've been putting this out, and type in money mechanics, please. Read this stuff, because even by administrative rules in state and federal law, your elected and public employees are supposed to be paid in gold and silver, not de facto dollars, even when they passed it in 1913. And that goes to the 1933 Bankruptcy Act. And this is the point, when we put these things together, you start comprehending on your rights and your privileges. And so when you go to court, you need to know what court, because this is the other thing I've been bringing up to people on the internet this last week, with many, many people dealing with an Article I administrative court versus an Article III court. And people go, how do you get into an Article III court? Number one, you don't capitalize everything like the Article I administrative court does. Because either you want to be in a maritime court or you want to be in a constitutional Article III court. But in an Article III court, like I keep repeating myself, and I will do that all the time, is that you have to get the certified oath of a judge if he took an oath to the Constitution or if he took the oath to the corporation. There are two oaths the judges take. And then also, too, you want to make sure you get his certified bond. And we do have that up on, I believe that's on new.org and trackers, so that way you can go on it. And I know I put it up, and I'll put up an updated one on the Facebook site so people can have that, so that way they can actually read it, print it out, so they got it to go after judges. I'm putting together all this stuff right now, what I've gone through in my county for human trafficking. So I'll have that out shortly. I've been trying to get that out for the last month, as people know, but I've had new information and new stuff that I've been putting together with this, and so I want to make sure when I put this out, we go after this, because you could even use my format that I'm putting out if people want to use that with their own structure on human trafficking. And that's the point. You have to write the criminal charges in human trafficking. And that's what disturbs me. I mean, I talk to people all the time, and they're like, why should I write a criminal charge? Well, that's the district attorney's job. No, the district attorney's job is not to write criminal charges. It's your responsibility to write the criminal charges. The district attorney has the right to enforce your authority on the arrest, on the filings. And we put that up. We want you folks, we want people to read the real laws, administrative rules, not the democracy, because our government is not a democracy or a public form of government. We, the people, are the government, not immigration that votes like the 17th Amendment. Because the 17th Amendment, and trust me, I mean, I've been elected official. Back in 2004, in the local papers, the mayor won the race, and the headline in the News Times was, "Local mayor wins the race by dead votes." And so I'm questioning it, and they're like, well, there were so many votes that, she had enough for it. And it's like, there was dead votes in it. That's a federal crime that needs to be investigated. And so this is how these people get away with what they're doing to you and I in the circumstances. So when we start standing up to these issues and start making sure that they're not getting away with it, like, the 17th Amendment, we want to bring this up. When you got an affidavit out there, and this is the one thing not only I, but several people that have written affidavits and trying to get them out, but we've got to start autographing these other men and women's affidavits and filing with them as witnesses. Because we all know it takes 4 or more witnesses technically for an affidavit to be lawful under Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution under contract law. So we have to start putting these things together, but it takes more than one witness to do this. And once more than one witness starts doing this, then we're going to start seeing the charges being filed. Then we're going to start seeing these things happen. But we've got to start making sure that we are enforcing our public employees to do this. We've got to make sure they're doing this we've got to filing, we're opening the door, and we've got to work together on this stuff. Now, we are going to be coming out with a couple more affidavits here shortly. I know the last 2 months has been really frustrating because I've been literally up and down and in and out of the hospital and dealing with the medical issues. And so now I'm basically somewhat stable. Like I said, I've got 40% of my heart working now. And so I'm going to jump back and get the other affidavits on human trafficking done because we need to get that out. I need to get that out. And when I get that out, please, when you get a copy of it, pass it around to your local medias. Pass it around to everybody because what I'm putting in it is all factual evidence. There is no hearsay, and I can prove it by what they've done. I've got the audio tapes, the video tapes, what they have done. So I'm using my case as the injured party, but the main thing when you do an affidavit, you have to put in Title 18, all right, 3771 Corpus Delicti. If you do not put in that you are a living man and woman in that title of Title 18, 3771, the courts ignore you because now you're not a living man or a woman. You are a dead entity, and that's how they get away with dismissing court cases. It's that simple. But once you realize how the system is working, how these judges do these administrative rules to, circumvent your case, and you start writing it. Now, we do have on the website the federal federal description of criminal activities, and so quote these things. We have the federal laws up there. Quote their administrative rules, because they have to go by administrative rules. And we have even when a public servant doesn't file your paperwork, because when you put a paperwork into the courts, and you get, even if you get a stamp on it, it doesn't say filed, but it says received, by law, it's filed. And we have the information. I've put it up there. People could get it. And so you want to quote their administrative rules when you're filing to the clerk and stuff, because if they're not filing, you don't have to refile it. You already filed it with your paperwork. Then you can file the criminal charges on that man or woman who failed their job. And this is the way this is the way we're going to be successful in doing this. All these other men and women out there whining and crying and want to do petitions. And, I see 5 new petitions this week dealing with, CPS, to revamp the system and change the system. The system doesn't need to be changed. It's already written, but we need to enforce it. Now, I do have the structure, and if people, especially in Oregon, want the structure with Title IV and how the state of Oregon steals the money from the feds, I have their administrative rules that they're doing by how they're getting away with it. And so if you're doing that with child support and that stuff, we have it up there, and we'll get it to you. But you have to sit there and be responsible. You know, and like I was just explaining to a couple people today, when you hire an attorney, you have no rights. You give up your rights. End of story. So the attorney could throw you in jail, could dismiss your case through the judge, anything the attorney does, because you say you're not a responsible man or woman. And so that's how you're getting away with it. So anyhow, yes, and then hang on a second. We got that one. So let me get that one out. And so dealing with that, we'll get the other information out to you. And cool, I got the Delaware case, so I'm going to get the sheriff case up there. I got to save this. So, and we do have the case where the sheriff deputies and the sheriff department has no authority. The sheriff only has authority.
If I may.
Okay, go ahead.
The reason it took me so long to find it is I had to find the PDF that I had downloaded ahead of time because the website that originally was on has completely deleted it.
Ooh, yes, I figured that would come because after I published it so much. You know, because they don't want people to know that the police department and sheriff's departments have no authority. And so this is the one thing that people have got to comprehend. I've been watching the internet for the last 2 years delete so much lawful information off the internet and rewriting it as democracy, and they are literally doing that. So when you have these instruments and stuff, when I pass this stuff out, make sure you put it on a flash drive. Make sure you save it. Because, like I said, with this stuff, with the sheriff not having authority, I'm putting that out with the letter that I'm putting out with the other information to prove it. And then the other thing I got to find, too, is the one that when I wrote the one for Judge Scalia on immigration, when Judge Scalia was assassinated, because that was under the idea and the thoughts was asked for me to put together with Judge Scalia and Judge Roberts on Obama, on immigration to prove the facts. So I did the research, and I think that was a 28-page instrument, 28 or 32 pages instrument to get into immigration. I went through the history going back to the Constitution of 1787, Original Immigration Act, and it even says going back there that when immigrants come in, they're only allowed 50,000 every other year. End of story. But that was the maximum that we were allowed to bring into this country. Okay, a minimum was what we wanted. Okay, but maximum was 50,000 every other year. Also, too, they had to go through and be verified in your community. So if they were your neighbors and all the neighbors said, no, we don't want this individual, this immigrant in our country, they ship them out. That's the law. But they're changing these laws and administrative rules to cover this stuff up because they don't want people to realize that these laws are real. They are truly existence compared to the fantasy that is being drugged out there in administrative rules. So we do have instruments that are there to protect us. And so we have to use these instruments to protect not only ourselves, but the immigrants that are there, because if the immigrants don't have a future, we don't have a future. So that's the point of teaching immigrants the lawful and legal structure, so that way they protect their bloodline too. I mean, we've got to, that's the one thing that people don't get. And I'm arguing with some people about the bloodline, the circumstances of the bloodline, how the bloodline works. And, I mean, that goes all the way back in history. And you could actually, type in, England bloodline of the crown. And you start reading this stuff about England bloodline and how that works and how the crossbreeding, what they did to keep their bloodline pure. So, I mean, this stuff is real. It is a reality. And so we have the solutions to these instruments, to these problems. And like I said, the 17th Amendment, is not lawfully or legally. So everything passed after the 13th Amendment is administrative rule and a corporation. And we know what that is. What is that, 1302? I can't remember off the top of my head, but we'll bring it up here in a minute. But, I mean, these administrative rules and stuff we have to go by. I mean, arguing with, like I said, with people when they're going, well, times have changed and we need to change. No. Once you lose the Constitution, the world loses. Because next thing you know, we're going to have one religion called Roman Catholic Church that's going to run everything. And if you don't believe in Roman Catholic Church, you're going to be executed. The Christian crusades are already still happening. They have never gone away. You're watching the Christian crusades in your administrative courts today, and it's a reality. And then the other scariest thing, we got the Muslims being elected in office, and they're playing this religious card, and they don't have a religious right to be in this country. You can't sit there and say, I have this religion right. You don't, because we've already proven that by Thomas Jefferson and dealing with the navies and the Marines when they were formed to protect our borders. You know, listen to the Marine song. Get what the Marines were about. Get what the Navy was about. And the Coast Guard, how they were set up to protect our borders. And that's the one thing that we have to protect our borders, and that's the one thing we need to protect, our elected and public servants who are honorable. And when you have elected and public servants that are honoring their oath of servitude, we need to help them. We need to support them. We need to back them up with affidavits and facts, and we need to speak on their behalf. You know, it's like that's the one major point we have with the corporation President Trump. You know, he's talking about the rights. The 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment don't have the rights. You're going to see some other things that are going to be coming up. He's going to be bringing up. That's going to shock the Democrats. Why the Democrats are going, oh, you know, we need to file treason charges on him. We need to file impeachment charges on him. Well, they can't go after treason on him because he hasn't committed a crime, and Donald Trump's been saying that, and he's admitting the truth on it. He has never committed a crime, so they can't screw with him on that. But they're trying to come up with these things to convince the general public, you know, under democracy of administrative rules of the British government. And remember, the structure is still run by the British government. The corporation is still run by the British government. We do have two constitutions, even though the other constitution was rescinded back in 1889. But they're still going by the democracy, trying to shove it down our throats. That's how when they passed the administrative rules in 1940, they're shoving down our throats. Like the birth certificate bond. You know, I mean, it's funny. I mean, it's interesting because I've been talking to, you know, I've been in and out of the hospital literally for the last 2.5 months. And I've been talking to, you know, doctors and nurses, and they know it. Some of them actually don't know it, and they're researching it, and they're like, holy mackerel, what? But a lot of them actually do know it. They comprehend it, and they are working with things. But you have to be honest with your physicians. Like, you know, I'm dealing with mine, you know. I mean, I'm just laying it on the floor and on a rug, you know, what my medical condition is, which they know. You know, I'm a severe chronic pain man. I have 19 blown discs out of 24. My neck is titanium. You know, I have a crushed back. I have spinal stenosis. You know, so I mean, I live in severe chronic pain beside the pain of kidney failure, and trust me, you don't want that kind of pain. You know, plus I'm living with heart and lung failure, which that's why I'm still in the hospital right now for lung and heart failure again. And see, this is real. These things are really happening, you know, besides me living it. But these things are happening not only to myself, but to others. And that's why, you know, when we see these cell towers going up, speaking on these things so we don't live this stuff, so we can get these smart meters off our homes. And so you can file these things to make sure that we get them out of our home. And you need to file this paperwork. If you have a smart meter on your home, go to smartmeter.org. We've got that on our website too. Go read the contract. We'll have another contract on our deal. I want to put another contract up so that way we hold the board members liable. So if they don't do it, then you just file the lawsuit, and the board members of the utility commission are reliable. We want to set it up so you just have to file one paperwork, and if they don't do what the law says, because the Supreme Court did come out clearly state that the Fourth Amendment, the smart meters not only violate the Fourth Amendment, but they violate the Seventh Amendment. And so that's the one thing that our amendments, the first 10 amendments, have authority. Well, technically 12, but originally there was only 10 amendments. So it's reading the structure that was passed to protect us. You know, and the last one, the last amendment that was ratified was the 13th with judges and attorneys. Because the judges and attorneys have no authority. The court system, we know, is administrative unless you got a grand jury. And that means a jury of 6 men and women of your personal peers and 6 men and women of the opposing party of the injured party. So, I mean, because we got to look back in history in the communities way back when we had these rights, they had to live back with these men and women. So if the men and women didn't make a proper amends or something like that, you know, then they were, you know, dealt with sternly. But the system was originally designed so that way you have a right to make amends first. And once you make amends, then it's over with. It's done. Once it's done, it's done. You can't keep going on and bringing it up and running. That's the whole point of the system, to make amends. So that way we stop these issues. So we do have lawful and legal rights, but it is comprehending what is a lawful right, what is a legal right, and making sure that you're doing your affidavits and criminal charges. And that means if you do get pulled over and kidnapped and held for ransom, you file on a cop. You file on a district attorney. And they'll tell you, oh, that doesn't matter. You're wasting your time. You file with them. You file in their local court, but also, too, you file with the Department of Justice and the Supreme Court of an Article III court in Washington, D.C. And all your states have an Article III court in it, but you have to do the capital and lower C's, and the capital and lower, you know, Supreme Court capital and lower numbers. And you know, trust me, I've been getting feedback. A couple cases are going through right now in the Supreme Court they're nervous about, and they're telling the clerks are telling people, you can't write capital and you can't do the small letters. You can't write, you know, capital S and small u and that for the Supreme Court, because they're still trying to keep it a maritime court, because they don't want to have it so that way their court system fails. Because once the maritime court is done, taxes are gone completely. We already know taxes are fraud. Once the maritime courts have done that, we know the local jails are going to be closed, because they can't sit there and kidnap and harass us and steal us. And so when they do kidnap your car and they impound your car, remind yourself you have to file grand theft auto charges, personal property theft charges on these men and women. See, it's outlining the charges on these men and women, what they have done to you. And that's the only way that you're going to be able to be successful in the court cases. And like I'm going to keep repeating myself, if you do not put Title 18, all right, 3711 Corpus Delicti, that means your straw man account exists, your birth certificate record, and that says you're a dead man. And that's the same thing, and people go, well, and that's the other point that I'm bringing up, and I'm getting people to comprehend, because everybody keeps going, well, religion, you have a soul. Well, let me put this way to you. When you do a birth certificate, they take your footprint and put it on the paper called the soul print. There's your soul. So do you want to own your soul, or do you want the state to own your soul? See, it's learning how it really works compared to the way we've been indoctrinized to believe. So your soul is on the footprint of your birth certificate, and that's the soul that they talk about in the Bible. So it's looking how, stepping out of production, looking how all these circles and how all these things come together. And more we do that, things start coming together. And I will get this court case out to the Superior Court of the state of Delaware, in Sioux County so people could get this case. And that's the one thing. I'm glad that, and by the way, thank you because we saved it. And this is the point when we get these things out, you have to save these things because they don't want it out to the general public. They want to make sure that you can't use this in their court system, in their de facto Article 1 tribal court systems. Because if you're putting this evidence in the court system, even a tribal court system, they have to put this in, and you want it in recorded record. So you want to make sure that you send it certified, recorded record, and also too, besides sending it certified, if you go into the court system or to the county clerk and have it certified and stamped, all right, that's what you want. You want as much evidence with their ink on it. Everybody says, oh, the private sector. Don't do that, Ed. Why are you doing that? Because you're not doing it in the private sector. Well, the point is what we have a public and private sector. So, and if you're not doing it in both structures when you're going into these tribal courts, there's no evidence. There's no evidence to be admitted in court. So it is putting these things together, realizing how it is. And so anyhow, what I want to do is I want to get the floor open, and I'll get into some more. But hopefully we got some people with some thoughts on this. We want to get this up. So, bring your thoughts and ideas in. We got to start moving this because if you notice that Donald Trump has been working on things. The House and Senate's working on things. Everybody's attacking the Republican and Democratic Party. And quit arguing with these idiots. There is no Democratic Party. There is no Republican Party. It's all a mind game, and you folks know it. And the only way we're going to save the country or drain the swamp is by we the people. I mean, and if you actually listen to corporation President Donald Trump, he's told you that. The only way to do it is for you to do it. You have to drain it. It's your responsibility. And so once the responsibility comes from we, the native people, even immigrants, they have a legitimate right because, see, they're paying on the system, so the system has to protect them. So that's the point, is learning the circumstances of the facts that we live. So anyhow, let me go ahead and open up the floor, see if anybody's got something they would like to sound off on.
All participants are unmuted.
Ed.
Yep.
On that earlier, what you said about Mexican American, Asian American, you're not American then.
Right.
So then how would you put it, that you're American Mexican or what?
Sovereign.
Go ahead. Somebody was speaking?
I'm just saying you put it that you're sovereign.
Yep. And don't use the word sovereign citizen, that you're sovereign. Or like I do when I talk and, when I do that and my stuff, I just put lawful bloodline native. People go, what does that mean? Well, my family's been here that long, and my paperwork says I'm native. And I'm not saying that I'm a Mexican American or Chinese American, because when you put Mexican or Chinese or anything, English or anything like that, you're putting a title of nobility on it. Does that make sense? You see where I'm coming with the title of nobility?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't want the title of nobility. So you don't want the title of nobility. So when you do that, you're a lawful native. That's like your son. I mean, he's getting it. I've been listening to a lot of stuff he's been getting, and we want to get more and more. I want to see him still progress, because he is progressing. But that's the whole point, is that you have to clarify that you're lawful or legal.
Okay, and what about filling out documents or like, say, a job application?
You put on that simple. When it asks you if you're a United States citizen, you don't check that box. You write in it you're a lawful native.
Okay.
Okay, and I've done that in my own instruments. And then when it comes to when they say here's a W-2 form or W-4 form, I always put, because on all those forms they have a box where you could check that you're not participating in taxes. And so I've always checked that. And if they don't have the boxes, I write on the paper that I'm exempt from taxes. And so, and I do have that up, and I don't know if we have it on the website yet or not, but I do have that with the native contracts that says natives don't have to pay taxes at all, and I've got that structure, and that was even in the Los Angeles Supreme Court decision too. So, I mean, the information is out, and I mean, it's like the other one we'll get up to, because this was just done, put out Sunday, January 6th, 2019. Colorado Sheriff has no authority. This is a new one. I love it when these new, because you got to remember, we are opening up. A lot of us were putting out these instruments, not only me, but others, and even others on this conversation are putting out these instruments. But now a Supreme Court decision that came out publicly December 7th, 2018. Okay, now it's just a few months ago. Colorado Sheriff has no authority to hold people solely to request immigration authorities. So they don't have the right to hold them, but they're supposed to ship them to them immediately. See, in immigration, they're supposed to be shipped immediately. You're not supposed to hold them. You're supposed to have them picked up immediately. And so the Supreme Court decision is partially correct, but they're getting away. They're trying to get around that so that way they can keep the funding going for, what do they call that, sanctioned cities. And we know that that's already been proven, and the Supreme Court has said that there's no such thing as sanctioned cities, and it violates the Constitution. That came out in 2 federal court decisions in, was it June, July, and August. So in the last 5 months, they've come out and proven that in the Supreme Court decision that clearly states that. And so that's why I keep putting these things up and getting these things up on the Facebook sites, and we're putting them up and trying to get them published as fast as we can. And so that's why I say, go through our sites, go through the structure. You know, we have many other groups up there that put templates up there. And so, I mean, you know, research the stuff that we've got, the templates I've put up, or either others that we've put up there, because, I mean, that's the whole point, is about educating ourselves so we know the truth compared to the administrative fantasy that's dictated. So, anyhow, anybody else? I'm rambling, so I got to at least let somebody else speak. No, okay. So, but anyhow, that Supreme Court decision came from the ALCU, which amazes me that some of the things the ALCU has been putting out here recently, you know, and they just put out another thing on immigration that I got to find that again. I had it a couple weeks ago when it surfaced up, and then finding this computer system, whatever's got it, I've lost some instruments. And so I had it from the Supreme Court that said on that the immigration has no authority. I mean, they have authority to arrest and convict and put people in jail. And so the Democrats are fighting against that one. And the ACLU was the one who put that out. It was one of the ACLU's court cases. And then the ALCU, when I put that out, I believe that was the court case that I did a couple years ago with Nene, dealing with hemp and false arrest and all that. That was his court case that we wrote. Well, actually, I wrote. And we put up, and that's 90. I'll get the rest of his court stuff up on new.org and Tracker so you can see with Nene what's going on. He is Lakota Native, and this is the point that, you know, I'm working with other natives. You know, some of these other natives are full-blood Indians, but they're natives. And I mean, you know, and that's the one point is that people say, oh, Indians, it's all about Indians. No. If you are whatever color you are, and see, the Constitution has nothing to do with racism. There is no such thing as racism. It depends on personal and property damage. So slander, that's not racism. If you slander and cost somebody their income, their business, their survival, their structure, that's a totally different thing than what they try to do on racism, because now they're dealing with this, you said something about a transgender, so now that could be considered racism or offensive. And they're coming up with new transgender wording to make criminal activities out of transgender. Well, you can't change your DNA, folks. You're a man, you're a man. You go for a sex change, okay, but you're still a man. You can't change the DNA structure. So that's the thing that, people need to start coming to the real reality of what's going on compared to what they think it is. And remember, the district attorneys, and we got this up too, district attorneys, judges, attorneys cannot write affidavits. Police departments, cops cannot write an affidavit. The only ones can write an affidavit is lawful bloodline natives, and including immigrants, so long if they were personal and property damaged. So, an affidavit has to be written by the injured party or the responsible man or woman for that injured party. And it's that simple. And so it is learning what we've got. It's learning how our laws work and learning how statute and codes work versus the Constitution administrative rules. And that's the one thing, the Confederate documents. And then the one thing is, don't forget, we do have it, if you want to have the copy of the 1993 certified Queen of England stamp on the Constitution, says the Constitution is law of the land. We have it. Not only that, I put it in the Oregon State House and Senate. I put it in public meetings. I had it certified at the state of Oregon. Nobody disagreed. I paid for it to have it publicized in the paper. Nobody disagreed. So that stands as law, as a certification by her filing in the Federal Document Center, and that's already filed. It's there. So when people try to say, we're still a British colony, no, we are not. Okay, and I can prove that too. I have the evidence. I even wrote that in the affidavit, in the evidence I did for Judge Scalia, and then when me and David Lee Buse, when we put together our affidavit, what was that? Dealing with the birth certificates. Because remember, we asked the coroner if we were alive or dead. And so that's the one thing, you can go on that instrument, use it yourself, and you want to send it to them. You want to ask them if you're alive or dead. Let them prove it. They have to prove it. If they don't prove it, well, hey. See, that's the point. That we have the structure there, we have the tools, and we are more and more getting the knowledge and passing the knowledge on. And so when we get these knowledge and it works, and you're protecting yourself, that's what we need to do. And that's the only way that these things are going to be successful, is if we do this correctly and realize that we are doing this to protect the bloodline. And that even comes to natives, because even with the natives, if they don't protect their bloodline, they're shipped out. And the other point I want to make clear, I get disturbed when I hear all these people going, well, the 7-year-old kid died in custody. No, she did not, number one. Read the real facts. Don't listen to what people are putting out there without verifying, because everybody wants to jump and assume. They don't verify what they're doing. They don't verify and prove the facts that people are claiming. And when it comes to immigration, we have a right to ship them out. They don't have a right to our food. They don't have a right to medical. They don't have a right, period. And that's the one thing that you have to step out of the movie and watch the production, because if you're not doing that, and if you have bloodline children, great-grandchildren, and you're passing the bloodline down, and you want to have your bloodline passed, so the only ones who are going to remember you and talk about you is your ancestry. And so that's the only thing we have. And so without that, we have nothing. So with the ancestry passing down, and for lawful and legal, that's how we save this country. And without proper immigration, everybody keeps yelling, we need to open the border, let these people come in. Well, that's the same thing. You're letting these people come in your home and rape, robbing, and pillaging. You know, I've already argued with people on the internet recently dealing with immigration, and especially with Mexicans. I have personally dealt with over 100 children work cases that were raped not only by the state of Oregon, but raped by Mexicans, immigrants, illegals in this state. And I've dealt with well over 100 cases just in the state of Oregon. And when people say that these men and women or these men ain't raping your children, I mean, trust me, they are. And the worst case they did was, well, besides the state of Oregon, was raping a 5-year-old child, trying to put Pamela and Will Gaston in prison, and that didn't work because that was proven that the state of Oregon authorized the rape of a 5-year-old child. But the other case I worked on was an 11-year-old girl that was raped by a 38-year-old Mexican. And the judge, what did the judge do in Lincoln County? Let him go. So, I mean, this is disturbing. You know, and it's very fortunate and blessing when you see that some of these pedophiles, these, mainly, ministers and these foreigners that are coming up missing now, or whatever happens when they find them with their member in their mouth or the throat slip. Well, I mean, you can't blame people for, standing up for their rights. I mean, that's like the deal I was talking to a couple people on the phone earlier yesterday, dealing with the case in Texas where they wanted to go after that man because he walked in and one of his relatives was assaulting his 5-year-old daughter, and the guy hit him 3 times. Didn't mean to kill him, but killed him. And everybody, was going, well, the guy should go to jail because he killed the guy. He should go for at least, I'm trying to remember the deal. It's not murder, but there's another word I'm trying to think. But the point is that nobody should go to jail when they're protecting their family and bloodline. You do something horrendous like that, and somebody reacts. Hey, I mean, that's the point we got to deal with life. On that point, you can't sit there and go, well, we need to arrest the guy because he defended his family, and maybe the guy didn't know his own strength when he hit the guy, and so that's why the guy died. And that's why everybody was upset because the district attorney in Texas refused to charge the man with murder or manslaughter. And I was praising, actually I wrote a letter praising the district attorney for that decision. Because, when those things are like that with a public servant standing up, you don't have to make sure it's publicized in the newspaper or make it public. Just a letter, inside letter to them on their email for the corporation saying, hey, good decision. We respect your decision for standing up for the constitutional right of this individual or for the immigration right of this man or woman that, was defended. But if they are here illegally, I don't give a damn. If their children are here illegally, ship them out. They don't have a right. And once we start standing on our ground, because if you go to a foreign country, you have no rights in a foreign country. They ship you out or throw it like Mexico. If you get caught down there and you don't have your papers, mandatory 6 months in jail, more than likely the average is a year. And sometimes it's up to 5 or 6 years if they'll keep you in jail there. And so why are we not doing it in our own country? Why are we sitting there letting these people not only destroy our country, but destroy our families and bloodline? To me, that is just horrendous going on. So, but anyhow, if anybody would like to speak up, go ahead. So, okay, nobody wants to speak up. So, okay, well, I know a couple people that, like I said, I'll get a hold of you guys Tuesday. We'll get that back and forth. And I'm looking forward to the information. I got something else I want to bounce off you. But like I said, I'm going to get this one out on the Sheriff Has No Authority. I'll get that on the website, post it, and get that out to people. And please pass this around. Make sure you save this information because we need to save it. Now, what I'm going to be doing with the state, I'm going to be putting this out to the state structure with everything that I'm filing on human trafficking. And so remember, go ahead. The floor is open.
Make sure you send that to me, please.
Oh, no, I'll send you that here in a minute.
I'll talk to you Tuesday.
Yeah, no problem. I'll send that to you here in a minute. And so, like I said, anybody else who wants it, do it. If I could, I'm going to see if this link that came up, I'm going to see if I could post a link to the talk show tonight with the information, because I'm going to try to see if I can find the court case on the internet, so that way I can post this link up on the website so people could just go and click on it and it'll pop up. Because that's the one thing I've been trying to keep up on the YouTube channel, putting up the information on the stuff we're talking at their fingertips. And so that's the whole point. Somebody else, I heard somebody coming in, so anybody else would like to speak? Okay. So yeah, I'll get that sent to you, and we'll talk Tuesday. I'll get as soon as I get this printed out or set up, I'll get it out to you. But I want to get this out too on the Facebook page to the Continental Sheriffs, not the Continental Sheriffs, not the fake deals. I want to put it on the United States Sheriff site. There's a couple of sheriff sites that I'm getting out, and that's the whole point. They have to honor their oath of servitude to save their job. That's what I just put that in for to the administration dealing with the police departments to prove the police department has no jurisdiction. There is nothing in the structure of the Constitution or the founding instruments of this country that gives any police department or corporation of a police department authority. The only authority that they have the state corporation, this city, or to the police bureau that they get their certificate from. So they have to take a constitutional oath, which I have that information. I did put all that structure in this information that I did, that I sent out to Congress on the police departments. So if they're not honoring their oath, like Donald Trump said, he's going to be looking at, and I don't know if anybody paid attention, but he just said this a couple days ago about investigating police departments of shutting them down. So, I mean, and people are getting it. People are panicking because they don't know the Constitution. They don't read the stuff, and they just go by what they hear by mainstream media, and it's like all these guys, Turk radio station, and what the heck says that white-haired guy on CNN. I keep emailing these guys, come on, debate me, come on, let's get a debate going. You're lying to the people, and I put this up on their Facebook sites, how they're lying to the people, and I challenge them to a debate if they got courage. And I do put that in. Go ahead.
Did I ever send you the document, Constitutional Law Enforcement?
I think you did, yes. But if you would resend that to me again so I can plug it in to that, and I'll make sure that we get it up on the website, but I'd like to have that resent to me so that way I can get it up. And I will send this to you here just a second. Let me...
Do you remember the case law I sent to you? I think it was Jefferson versus Massachusetts or Jacobson versus Massachusetts.
Okay.
I sent that to you. All right? It was a case law.
Okay. Yeah, if you can resend it to me, that would be good. So that way I can keep up on it.
Okay. Well, that's why we need to talk, because some things have come about that you're not aware of, that you were. Jacobson versus Massachusetts created the police state in the United States and allows the Hello?
Yeah, there you are. I was wondering what happened to you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Anyhow, that case law allowed them to pass the Law Enforcement Act but in passing Law Enforcement Act, they created a statutory law enforcement, not a constitutional one.
Right.
Okay, under the Constitution of these states, and that document found its way someplace.
Gotcha.
All right, that's why we need to talk. It's urgent.
Okay, yeah, no, and that's the one thing like I said, tomorrow I'll be released. It's been very intriguing because basically off and on for the last 6 months I've been literally in and out of the hospital, as everybody knows, and so we're trying to figure that out. And so this is the first time that I'm coming to the point where, I'm basically not so out of it per se. Dealing with, being out of it, dealing with what I've been dealing with. So anyhow, yeah, we'll tie it up here. I'll give you a shout. I want to get settled in tomorrow after I get done because I got a lot of stuff I got to do. So it'll be late Tuesday afternoon before I get a hold of you.
Okay, buddy.
Yeah, and that'll be my time, so it'll be early evening your time. Or midnight, mid-evening your time. So anyhow, we will tie up. I'll get that information to you. So anybody else would like to? So seeing that nobody else wants to bring anything up, we'll call it an evening with the information going out. Don't be bashful. If you continental or constitutional law enforcement structure out to you, because there is a constitutional law enforcement deal. I'll get that out to people on that one. We'll get that posted up on the website. And like I said, I would like to thank our web host and our guy that's putting this stuff together, and our producer. He's been doing a wonderful job, and so I just want to thank him. Because without him and our structure, we're not getting this out. And because what he's doing, we are getting it out. And so people are listening. We might not think that people are not listening, but I can tell you the numbers are going up. And I've been watching things being bouncing around Facebook, even though that they're not using organ trackers or what I'm doing. But you can see when they're putting different stuff out where it's from, and so they know, I'm watching where it's from, so I know where it's coming from in the structure, so it's there. So, anyhow, with that, if we have nobody else that would like to say anything, I'd like to say, let's make sure that the Creator keeps us fed and keeps us alive, because without the Creator, none of us exist without any of it.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ed. You've been listening to Education with Ed. It is currently Sunday, January 6, 2019. It is 6:06 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And sorry for any of the audio that seems to have cut off or anything like that. It is not on our end. It is with Free Conference Call HD. For some reason, they're being a little bit finicky. So, with that, hopefully you've gotten information, and I guess we can all agree we're glad that Ed is still with us, and we're still able to learn the information that he has in his brain, and that he's constantly, almost fanatically, researching and finding out, because he wants America back the way it was by the Constitution. Not this corporate backstabbing duplicity that they've been doing since, what was it, 1933?
Yeah, they actually started in 1913, and then it was 1933 when they did the Alleged Bankruptcy Act. But remember, folks, the Bankruptcy Act is the British government. The Rothschilds and Fairchilds went bankrupt to you, the lawful Americans. The Americans never went bankrupt. You couldn't go bankrupt because we never had a contract with them. And those who signed the contract were the House and Senate members, the corporation members, and those senators, their personal bloodline, their children and grandchildren are liable with those assets. They're the ones responsible to pay off the debt, not you, not I.
In other
So
words,
that is a clarification. Go ahead, sir.
in other words, the dead entities, known as the corporation, they owe, not you, not living men and women.
Correct.
So with that, we're going to say good night and thank you for joining us.